Well, we're here today with the Bonner County Multi-Disciplinary Elder and Vulnerable Adult Abuse Team, and we're here to talk about SCAMS. We did cover exploitation in our last video, but this time we want to talk about what you can do to protect yourself, or what you can do if you find yourself in the middle of a scam. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
I'm Dawn Rice from Panhandle State Bank.
I'm Paul Graves from Elder Advocates.
And I'm Darrell Wheeler, the Bonner County Sheriff.
So what's the, tell me one of the latest scams that we've seen here.
Well, there's no new scam under the sun. Unfortunately, they're reappearing time after time. There's different deviations from the scams, but I think the primary purpose of the scammers are trying to get personal information, bank accounts, social security numbers. They're trying to get passwords to accounts, and it's this is a process called phishing with the PH. It's like phishing, and what they do is they try to dupe the person either on the other line of the phone or on the computer to give that information over to them so that they can fraudulently access those accounts.
So what kinds of things do you hear or see coming across that they try to engage the person? What is it, like a crisis, or is it we want to help you? What kinds of things?
Well, I think that primarily they are focusing on some of those scams that saying that they're going to offer something for free or at a very reduced rate that seems very appealing to especially the elderly, and they're looking at getting something for nothing. And I guess the main point that we should be explaining is that if somebody's offering you something for free, then it's most likely not for free, and you need to really be cognizant of that, and your antennas need to be going up. If anyone tries to entice you into a very discounted product or service and try and put pressure on you that you've got to make a decision today, and this offer is only good today, and it's the best thing that can ever happen, it really causes the person on the other line to say, well, hey, you know what? Maybe it's only going to cost me $50 or $100 or $200 for a Caribbean cruise. This sounds pretty good. And what the person on the other side of the line or on the computer will try and get your credit card information and all of your passwords so that they can charge your card.
And then there's no cruise.
And then there's no cruise.
Right.
Or there's no $1 million prize at the end of the day.
Right.
And one of the biggest scams, I guess, in the mail is that you will get a letter saying that you've won a lottery or you've won a large sum of money, and I'm going to send you a check for, say, $1,000. I want you to cash that check for $1,000, and then I want you to send me the rest of it, and you keep $200 for your troubles. And then what happens is you send the $800 back, you keep the $200, and you think, wow, I just made $200. But then that check is a fraudulent check, and the money is deleted out of your account, and there's no way that you can go back to recoup that money, because normally those checks are issued in a foreign bank, and it goes beyond the reach of local law enforcement.
So, in terms of those checks like that coming through, tell us what you see. What do they look like?
The checks look like normal checks. I mean, they make them good. They're either they use color copiers or they make the checks very, very real. And usually what we see is people in need. I mean, they're needy people. I won that. I really want to send that money. Our tellers and our personal bankers we're trained to look at that, ask questions. Where did you get this? Do you know the person? What's the circumstances? And I mean, we just tell them this is fraud. If you won anything, they will send you the money. You don't have to pay anything if you won something.
Right.
If you have to pay for something, it's not. And Western Union actually is getting very good too, I think. They are, when people are sending money, I think they're getting better at looking at that too, because this is something, I mean, we've had customers that have been, oh no, I know this person, and it comes back, and it comes back after the money's gone, and then their account's overdrawn or their money's gone.
Right, right.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
really looking at where that check is coming from and having a good relationship with your banker
Yes.
is very important, and the trust, so that they know that their banker has their best interests at heart when they're giving them this advice
Right, most
about
certainly.
about
Mhm,
this payer
mhm,
source.
mhm,
I
most
was a
certainly.
target of that particular scam. 2 or 3 years ago, I got something in the mail about, I don't even remember the details, but Western Union was part of the part of this the process, and it sounded fishy. And so I went to my bank and showed it to them, and immediately they knew that it was a fraudulent transaction, and they took appropriate action. In fact, I think I wrote about that in my Dear Geezer column then just shortly afterwards, as a way of, and that's one of the ways that I try to keep people alert, is by the use of my Dear Geezer column, and as well as the Geezer Forum. Education seems to be the best tool for preventing people from becoming victims.
But I heard you say something really important, because you did consult with your bank.
Yes.
You know, you trusted that connection. So I hear that that's one of the things we really need to do well in protecting ourselves, is have a good relationship with our banker, and to understand what may be suspect and what may not. They can give us some good advice, right?
Absolutely.
So what about the grandparent scam?
Well,
Tell
let me share a little details. We actually had a local case here in Bonner County where a local woman received a phone call from somebody who identified themselves as a detective, stating their grandson was in custody and they needed $1,600 to get them out of jail, and they were in a foreign country. And then they provided another phone number for the facility for that they could call. And what happened was the woman did call that, and they confirmed, yes, your grandson is in custody, and if you can send $1,600, we will get them out of jail. And what Donna said, Western Union is really good, because in this case, this person went to Western Union and wired that money. Then they called me, and I told them it was a scam, and they were able to go back to Western Union and reverse those charges before the money was picked up. And so they
Wow.
did not lose any money. But it's very important that if you get any calls like that, a lot of times they say, please don't tell mom, or don't tell my sister, or don't tell anybody, because I'm really embarrassed. The first thing you need to do is get on the phone and call the person they say that they have in custody, and you're going to find out they're at home or at work, or
Right.
they're on vacation, and they're really not in another country. And I think the most important thing, if you have any doubts on if this is a scam, call your local law enforcement agency. If you're living in the city limits, call the police department, call the county sheriff, and say, I've got this piece of document, or I've got this email, can you tell me if this is true or not? And we can tell you if it's a scam that's going around, or if it's something legitimate. And we're welcome to meet with you and look at those documents, just as the local banking authorities are.
Because you would tell them automatically, we never do that.
Correct.
We would never do that. We would never handle it that way. So they really do need to disregard that number they're given and go directly to the local number to find out, is this the real thing?
And the most frustrating thing about this is that typically these out-of-country scams are investigated by the FBI. We do not have any jurisdiction, and our subpoena power, our investigative power does not go beyond the states of the United States. So we have no influence in determining who the culprit are, and normally they're operating in some of the smaller countries like Nigeria and other countries that we were never ever catch them.
Right. Even state lines
Right.
can hinder some sort of investigation or prosecution, depending on what the thing is. It becomes FBI, doesn't it?
Correct.
Excuse me,
Yes.
there's a variation on that scam, and that's through email.
Yes.
I have received over the last 4 years, I think, a number of emails that supposedly come from friends of mine, and they're asking, so and so is I lost my passport and I need some help. I immediately began to be suspect about it, so I wrote to the person and I said, I think you're being hacked, and that's exactly what was going on. So
And it's very insidious because they will use official looking logos and they'll make it sound, somehow they've gotten your name by virtue of some list somewhere. And they present you with a scenario that sounds like, oh, I need to be concerned about that. Or even if they tell me that my mortgage is in jeopardy, please respond with these items. If your bank was handling a mortgage, would you ever communicate via email with like a crisis thing?
No.
No.
And honestly, every day we hear this too. We tell customers, we would never ask you for information like that. If you have an account with us or any other institution, they have that information. They would never ask you. So we say, look at where the email address comes from, because when you hover over the address, it's never, it's usually going somewhere else, but they make it look like Panhandle State Bank, but it's got something else in there, so it's not going to the bank or to any other. Frontier, our employees get emails like this all the time, and we just report it to our
Right.
fraud department.
And the key piece is don't open the
Right,
email.
right.
If it looks, if it's a concerning email in terms of I think I need to respond to that, don't open it. Call
Right.
your bank or
Right.
call your lender
Right.
or call the police department. Don't open the email. I got one from the Attorney General's office one time. Sounds pretty,
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
trust that, right? No, I didn't open it.
No.
In fact, I took it to our IT department and
Mhm.
she said, no, don't open it.
Yeah.
And then we also say, if you get it like from Chase Bank wanting something from you, well, go out and go to Chase Bank themselves and
Yes.
contact them that way. Don't ever,
Respond to the
to
email.
that email
Yeah.
or open it or anything.
Wanted to lend a comment that a lot of the information that these scammers will get them from Facebook accounts, because of the elderly do not put the security features on it. So a lot of times anybody can access it, so they can see where you live, they can see who your grandkids are, and that's how they get the names and some of that information. They may follow it and say, oh, my grandchild's going on a trip to Mexico, and then they key on that and they use that as an opportunity to scam somebody. They will access your banking account. If you're not shredding all of your receipts and all of your accounts, then they're going through your garbage and they're accessing those and getting all that information through the internet or through your garbage.
So in terms of that, one of the things you can do to protect yourself is not to put your trash out at night and leave it out for the next morning to be picked up, especially if you haven't shredded things. Any type of documentation that has personal information on it shouldn't be put out that way. It should be put through a shredder.
I have another question. A bit ago, Jennifer, you mentioned something about mailing lists. And so I wanted to ask you, Daryl, about is there anything that the ordinary person can do or an organization can do to tighten up the regulations that allow organizations to sell their mailing list to each other?
Each organization is run independently by their policies and by their own rules that they've set up, and so there's nothing that prevent that. I really suggest that if you're part of an organization, that you have only one person in that organization sending out the mail, and only one person has control over that list, and you never give that list out to anyone else. And that's really the best way to protect.
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
usually you have to kind of read through the fine print on almost every contract that you sign saying I'm opting out of being on a list that then they will send out to other providers, but it's hard to find. It's hard to find it can be in a cell phone contract, it can be in an insurance contract, it's pervasive. And it is in there, but you really, really have to search for it.
My guess is that most organizations are very well intended in terms of wanting to share mailing lists so that more people get the information without realizing the kind of collateral damage that can cause.
Right. I don't think that it's, that harm is intended.
No.
But harm does happen. So just to recap a little bit, watch your emails. Don't open them unless you know where they're coming from. Have a good relationship with your banker. If you get a call about a family member needing you to bail them out, be sure and connect with your local law enforcement. And
Education.
Education, even what we're doing here. Be in the know. Find out, either in printed form, on the web, ask your neighbors, check your newspaper, be proactive, and please shred your documents.
And the FBI has a website, FBI.gov/scams safety /fraud. You can Google any of those frauds, and there are several organizations that have the most current scams, and please prepare. If something seems too good to be true, then it most likely is too good to be true.
And I'm hoping at the end of this that we will have those links to those websites posted
Yes.
as well. Thanks.